Pop Culture Pastor.
So, Cody, I just need to tell you that I have our lawyers on it. The PCP lawyers are all over this, just so you're not worried.
I am not worried knowing our lawyers. I don't know what I was worried about.
Oh, let me tell you. What is going on is they have told Marvel Studios that we need all the documentation for the development of the Nice Pool character in Deadpool and Wolverine, because we think Ryan Reynolds based the character on you.
I could see that.
To make fun of you.
How dare he?
How dare... Is this not the most surreal thing happening currently?
Honestly, Nice Pool might have been my favorite Deadpool extra besides Dog Pool.
I mean, maybe I'd be honored if I knew that character was a caricature of me.
Yes.
Except for the man bun.
Yeah, that doesn't fit.
If you're not following, the big news in Hollywood for like the last, month has been the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni situation. It's been a significant development in the entertainment industry. Actor-director Justin Baldoni, who directed the movie It Ends With Us, which Blake Lively was a star in, initiated a $400 million lawsuit against his former co-star Blake and her husband Ryan Reynolds.
That's a lot of cheddar.
Yeah, the lawsuit alleges defamation and extortion related to their collaboration on that film. Well, it comes about because Blake Lively did she have her own lawsuit, or was it just she put the story out there? Alleging, well, let me just tell you, her claims are, so she filed a lawsuit in December accusing him of sexual harassment and retaliation during the filming of It Ends With Us. She alleges that Baldoni's actions created a hostile work environment, causing her significant emotional distress. He says, Baldoni contends that Lively's involvement in the film's production exceeded her contract, what she was meant to do, leading to creative interference and then the public defamation. Because he's actually gone through some stuff here, right? So, like, he's faced professional repercussions that she probably won't, because she came out with her lawsuit first.
So I would disagree, just because before she came out with her lawsuit, Blake was the one that was looking bad through all this, because there were
image-wise
rumblings that it was a hostile work environment because of her, right, and that she was being a drama queen. But then the lawsuit came out from her party, and people were like, oh, this explains a lot more of the stuff. But yeah, I do think that for a while, I honestly thought Blake wouldn't be acting in anything that wasn't Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
Produced and written.
Yeah, let me amend what I said, because maybe I didn't say it right. Because what you said was correct. That's factual. When I say professional repercussions, I mean like actual technical things, not image related. Although image is a big part of this. Mm-hmm. But he lost his representation, like they dropped him, and some award he got, the Voices of Solidarity Award, because he has a podcast that's like based on, he was like big in the Me Too movement.
Oh, yeah. And
so they rescinded his Voices of Solidarity Award that he had received for doing that work. And so, I mean, there's been like, I don't know, repercussions may not be the word I want to use. Anyways, several industry figures have publicly supported Blake Lively, but here's the crazy part. Taylor Swift's involved.
Oh, my dear friend Taylor?
There is just like these elements of absurdity in the lawsuit. One we've already talked about, that Nice Pool.
Yes.
In Deadpool and Wolverine was like an inside joke making fun of Baldoni.
Although, like, if he had not come out with this, I think the only two people laughing are Blake and Ryan.
Right. Because, like, one, how many people know who Justin Baldoni is before all this? Two, not knowing who he is, how many people who knew him knew that Nice Pool was taking some shots at him?
Because I would have just said Nice Pool is like the exact opposite of Deadpool.
Yeah.
And that it was put in for comedic relief.
Well, the legal proceedings have also brought Taylor Swift into the spotlight because Baldoni's lawsuit specifically references Lively's alleged use of her connections, including Taylor Swift by name, to exert influence over the film's production and to pressure Baldoni into accepting script changes. That's according to people.com.
Free Taylor bracelets. That's what I need.
This is weird stuff. This makes me feel like this probably goes on a lot in Hollywood. Because really what you have here is clearly there was a clash of ego that started all of it. Who's got control, like a power struggle. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that to be mean to either one. I'm just saying this was clearly a power struggle that's gone bad.
And this comes at a bad time, I think, for our director friend, just because champions of the Me Too movement and women's rights, especially within pop culture, are, especially if they're a male, have kind of taken a heavy hit with the allegations and lawsuits against Neil Gaiman, or Gaiman, however you want to pronounce it, because he was a huge women's rights advocate, and allegedly he used that prop or championing that right as a way to assault, demean, and gain favor with women folk.
Yeah.
Allegedly. And so, like, him having this podcast and being a champion, that might have been enough back in the day to be like, okay, this doesn't sound on par. But now we have the New York Magazine or whatever it was called published this huge article about Neil Gaiman and other people, including who's the guy that got the pin from Scarlett Johansson? James Franco. Like,
oh yeah.
He was a champion until, like, he might not be the best person.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if he did what he's alleged to have done, but his lawsuit doesn't look on the up and up.
Real question, though. How much of the power politics in Hollywood just encourages this sort of behavior?
I think that there is an easy trap to fall into if...
Does it encourage this sort of behavior? I guess is what I'm saying.
I think that it definitely lends itself to it. I don't know if it fully encourages, because, I mean, we can point out probably other individuals that we would say, they seem to be on the up and up or doing it correctly. But there clearly is this sort of thing that happens, and it's not unheard of or uncommon. So
yeah, the online tells me that everyone's involved. Everyone's guilty. They were all going to Diddy parties.
I've heard that as well.
So here, let me sum this up, and you tell me if you think I'm right, wrong, where I'm off base. Because it seems to me that maybe when you read all the information, assuming one of them is not just outright lying.
Yes.
Assuming one of them is not just outright lying about everything, there was probably over the line behavior on both sides that created this hostile work environment. And now they're just trying to win. And he has more to lose, Justin Baldoni, because, like, in a way, so he's suing for $400 million, which is that's a lot of money. And if you factor in the reason being because he probably thinks he's not going to work again, because there's the very real possibility that just the accusation sours people on him. He's a young director. He hasn't done much yet. And this may, studios aren't going to want any piece of this. So in a scenario where he's telling the truth is closer to his version. He has way more to lose, I think. Whereas I feel like Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively's obvious, relationship with him being his wife, he's almost like bulletproof as far as Hollywood goes right now, in my opinion. And being connected to him would be good. Like, she's going to work. And do you think that's off base? That's just the feeling I get.
I mean, I think that Ryan and Blake are definitely more set for life than
For
Justin.
sure. Yeah.
But I think that there is a real possibility that if some of his allegations are true, that it will sour some studios from working even with Ryan, because Ryan was definitely heavily involved in this particular movie, because they talk about one of the intimate scenes being written by Ryan and Blake.
Yeah.
And so I think that definitely has possible repercussions for Ryan. And like I said, I honestly thought Blake might not get another acting big movie after the hubbub that came out from after the movie was released, clear up to December.
Yeah, so things, like, you're right. A few months back, it looked kind of bad for her. The image thing was not going her way, which probably prompted her lawsuit. Anyways, it's a mess. But it's very... It's like follows the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing, where we have these, like, weird high-profile court cases in Hollywood.
Just leave Taylor alone.
And Taylor Swift being involved just kind of raises the absurdity of it all, right? Like, she's like, $400 million, I'll just pay him off. No,
she
probably
could,
not. But yeah, no. All right. This is Pop Culture Pastor. We just started off with a little news story there. Stick around, because now we are going to go out to the lobby and answer listener questions before we get to our main subject of this pod.
What?
You ready to go answer some listener questions?
Raisinette time.
Nope. We'll see you in a minute.
Welcome to the lobby.
All right, Cody, we are out in the lobby getting our snacks, our Mountain Dew, as it were.
Yes.
I with my nachos and you with your chocolate-covered grossness.
There's nothing wrong with chocolate-covered raisins. It's part of a heart-healthy diet, Dave.
You sent me a meme the other day. It was a picture of Raisin Bran, and the meme said, "Imagine a cereal so bad that two scoops of raisins make it better."
Yes.
And I thought, darn right. Darn right. Imagine that.
I labeled it as Dave's burner account.
Cody thought I was in my anti-raisin propaganda era.
Yes.
All right. Well, we've got some questions to get to here. First question comes from Jim Smith. Jim, I believe, lives in New Jersey. Usually I got my Facebook open so I can kind of click on their profiles and I get all the notes down, but I didn't get the notes down this time. I just have the questions.
We apologize.
But I believe listener Jim is from New Jersey. And he asks this: you can buy anything you want. What do you buy?
In my mind, it really depends on the mood I'm in.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
One of the things that would always make the list.
I'm assuming this is like one thing. You only get one thing.
The one thing that I think makes each of my list is one of the Batmobiles that's for sale.
No, what are you going to do with a Batmobile?
What is Joe Burrow going to do with one? I don't know. What can I not do with one, Dave, is a better question.
Well, you can't drive it on the street legally. One.
I see a bunch of go-karts, side-by-sides, lawnmowers.
Cody shows up in the Batmobile with his Batman cowl and cape on. He's like, laws, where I'm going, I don't need law. Okay. All right. That's weird.
It's honest.
It is honest. I don't understand the car thing. I know a lot of guys would be like, I'm getting a Lamborghini. I'm just like, I don't get that.
It is going to bottom out on every street in this town.
All of our streets have dips.
Yes. Where if I got the Tumbler Batmobile, I think that I would be good.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought long and hard about this because there's not, I don't know. I just don't have that much things that I desire like that.
Let me guess.
Like, it'd be cool to have the General Lee from the Dukes of Hazzard or Kit from Knight Rider, I suppose.
You want Doc Holliday's hat autographed by Val Kilmer.
No, that does not. That would just collect dust in my house.
You would wear it.
I think so. Here is like the one thing in my life right now that causes me more negative feelings is that I have 4 kids and my house is just not big enough for me to have my own space. My wife, like the little space I have right now is we converted a sun porch into like an extra room. And so there's a TV and a couch out there and the Xbox, which has kind of become my space. Well, now my wife works from home. She works online and like her job just got a lot more difficult. So she needs like an office space. And so I'm about to lose that space. So
Dave's getting relegated to the basement.
No, but our basement's not finished. It's not cool down there. There's bugs, Cody. And it feels a little moist. I'm just not down with it. A little humid. But so if I could buy anything, one thing, I would have someone build like, what are those little, in my backyard, like the little grandmother's house / office.
A she shed.
Is that what it is? A she shed?
That's what I call it.
Oh, okay. I think that's what I'd get. That's the one thing on like right now that would actually impact my life that I don't have the money to do. Because I can't build one. Like I have no skills like that. I was raised by a single mom. I have no man skills.
Really need those dollar cryptos to take off.
Yeah, baby. We're in the crypto game. We're gonna by this time next year we'll have Teslas. With big stickers that cross out Elon's name. Tammy Smith Brown, her first time ever giving us a question, and you're gonna have to forgive me, Tammy. I don't know where you're from because I looked at her profile and it was hard for me to tell where exactly she was currently living.
Dave has failed you, Tammy, and I apologize.
Tammy, I'm glad you're listening. Thank you so much. And thank you for the question. She asks, if you could only watch the movies / TV shows of only one actor or actress for the rest of your life, who would it be?
It's going to be a toss-up. It is between Timothy Olyphant.
Yeah.
And probably Tom Hanks, because then I can watch Bosom Buddies and like 1 or 2 episodes of Family Ties, because he was the uncle that struggled with the adult beverages.
That is a wild answer. That's the reason you'd pick Tom Hanks, not just that there's several quality movies.
Quality movies, but then there's...
You do get the TV series, which is nice.
Yes, and he's in like one episode of that 1886 or whatever year it was.
Oh, yeah. Now, does that mean... Okay, here's the question, Tammy. We need a clarifying question. If Tom Hanks appears in one episode of 1883, does that mean we get to watch the whole series of 1883 because he's in it?
And Family Ties.
Because she says TV shows, so if he appears in the show at any point, he's appearing in that show. Is that how it works? Or is it just that episode?
I'm hoping it's the whole show, so then I can watch all of Michael J. Fox in Family Ties.
Yeah, you're just trying to... This has turned into strategy of... We just want to get the most possible viewing choices we can get from one actor. Is that where we're going?
Yeah, that's how I viewed it. Because Timothy Olyphant's in some quality movies. He has some quality series and some Netflix stuff. And so, yeah.
Yeah. So there's 2 ways to go. There's multiple ways to go with this, though. Because on one hand, you can definitely do the thing where you can just pick someone really good. A really prolific actor, actress.
Jackson would pick Kurt Russell.
Yeah, right. Like his favorite. Like I thought there was a chance you might pick Val Kilmer.
It was close. I'm not going to lie. I would, although the TV series thing, I would be very limited because he was the voice of Kit in the new Knight Rider series.
Yes. But and that speaks for itself. Picking a Kurt Russell or Val Kilmer, or my immediate thought was Denzel Washington.
Denzel was on my list, but like I didn't know if Different World episodes where his picture's hanging up in Whitley's bedroom counted as him being in the show.
No, that does not count. I know that. But then I started thinking in a different direction. I'm like, oh, yeah, TV. Like, if I pick Denzel, I get no TV.
Unless you go my route of A Different World.
So what happens if you pick, like, maybe a smaller actor or actress who's appeared in both things? Or just an actor maybe who's so prolific. Like, my thought was, well, if I don't pick Denzel, I'm sad because I never get to watch Crimson Tide again. But what if I pick Gene Hackman, who appears with Denzel, stars in Crimson Tide with Denzel, but then I get Hoosiers, I get Enemy of the State with him and Will Smith. Like, he's in all these. I get Superman. I get all the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, except for 4, I think.
Yeah. Honestly, a good answer might be John Goodman.
Oh, but yeah, do we really want to watch Roseanne though?
Well, you get Community, like a whole season of Community, because he runs the air condition repair school.
Chevy Chase would be another option, because then you get the whole series of Community.
You get Saturday Night Live.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Now we definitely need this. Tammy,
you asked a great question.
It's so good, but we need clarification. Like, yeah, if they were on a few seasons of the cast of SNL, is it just that season, or do we just get all SNL? That has to be answered, because then you open to a door to like Chris Farley, Mike Myers,
Phil Hartman.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. That's good. That's a whole episode.
Phil Hartman also might be a good answer. I don't know.
Yeah, Phil Hartman's been in a lot. You get Jingle All the Way.
News radio.
Kyle Kessinger asks this. He says, what is your top 3 favorite submarine movies? Which kind of fits in since I mentioned Crimson Tide. He said, my personal fave is The Hunt for Red October, followed by 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea with Kirk Douglas and James Mason, and Crimson Tide with Denzel and Gene Hackman.
Do we need 3?
I know. That was my response. Like, oh, well, those are good answers, I suppose. I mean, I didn't dislike The Hunt for Red October, but I didn't feel the need to watch it multiple times.
I know I've watched it multiple times, so I'll list that one.
Crimson Tide is the one for me. Like, that movie's great, but it's not because it's a submarine movie. It's because Gene Hackman and Denzel Washington going at each other in like their overacting phase, where they're just like hamming it up. That's so great in that movie. But yeah, I don't know. There was the one with the Harrison Ford.
I was going to say
the
K-19.
Widowmaker. Yeah,
the Widowmaker.
Yeah,
that one was quality. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, but like again, do I need to rewatch it?
No.
Are there other submarine movies I'm missing?
The Beatles' Yellow Submarine movie.
That's my answer, Kyle. I'm going with the Yellow Submarine with the Beatles.
There's Greyhound, Hunt for Red October, Crimson Tide, K-19, Black Sea, Underwater, The Abyss.
Oh, The Abyss is good.
Hunter Killer, Gods the Deep, Below, Submarine,
that
Wolf Call,
blasphemous.
Phantom, The Command, Life Aquatic. Oh, I forgot about the Life Aquatic.
Okay, that counts. Yeah.
Okay, I'm kicking Harrison Ford out.
All right, David Allen in Florida asks us, he says this. So this is the scenario. You guys are superheroes.
Okay.
Obviously.
Been one.
Would you have a cape, and would you have underwear outside your pants? Explain your answers.
Yes and yes. Growing up, my first Batman might have honestly been Adam West in the Scooby-Doo episodes that he was in. Mm-hmm. And so, like, he had the cape, he had the underwear outside, and Oh, it seems legit. And a lot of early Batman stuff, underwear's outside.
Yeah.
And I did like what the new Superman said about why he petitioned James Gunn to have his underwear on the outside.
Yeah.
The
That's what I thought of
thing.
too. Yeah. Well, because
And
so kids being afraid of an alien
Yes.
who has all these powers and strengths, and the wearing of the underwear on the outside reminds you of a professional wrestler.
Yeah.
And there's something that kids can look at there and say, "Oh, this is the edge is taken off a little bit."
Mm-hmm.
And so I did like that. I would definitely wear a cape because I'm not going to. What's the point of being a superhero if I don't get to wear a cape?
Capes look great in the wind. You just gotta be careful if you're flying around planes.
I mean, I wore the towel, the bath towel, the beach towel around my neck a lot as a kid to play superhero. So I'm definitely wearing a cape. But yeah, and the underwear outside the pants. I'm old school like that. Let's do that. Plus,
Yes.
I do dig professional wrestling.
I do too, as I'm wearing a Joe Hendry shirt and a John Cena sweatpants.
Just to be clear, that's the only time I'm wearing that style underwear. the Speedo things, as if they're going over my superhero pants.
Yes.
And with my boots, because I'm not. No. I saw a video today of, I was just perusing reels and somebody was at the beach and this dude had on Speedos. And I'm just like, bruh, come on now. And just in general, shorts are just way too short right now. I'm not here for it. Maybe that makes me a grumpy old man, but.
I thought shorts were too short when John Stockton was playing basketball. I don't need them that length again.
Yeah, well, it's too late. They're back, and I'm seeing way too much thighs. Man thighs. Man thighs everywhere. Because it's the men, too, man. The men are wearing the short shorts. They're just like, no one wants to see that.
I miss shorts that go past your knees.
I'm going to get like 30 emails from teenage girls and be like, I want to see that. Do girls like that?
I don't know.
I don't know enough. I don't know enough young people because I'm not a youth pastor anymore. I need someone to tell me.
Ask the kids that.
Do you like the boys all wearing shorts that show off like their hairy thigh?
Ew.
All right, this is devolving quickly. All right, thank you everybody for your questions. It's time for us to go back into the main studio and talk about what we're here to talk about. It's a What's Up Doc. And we're going to be joined by Minister DJ Dangerfield, who's coming to talk with us about Superman, the Christopher Reeve story. Come on back. All right. So it's time to the main part of the podcast. It's time for a What's Up Doc. We haven't done what was the last What's Up Doc we did, DJ? What did we talk about last time you were here?
I don't know. I listened to it, and I have to apologize to the community. I didn't do my best work.
Oh.
I remember listening to it and being very disappointed in myself.
Oh,
I don't know what. I was
remember
off.
that.
I was off. Oh, it was the one that it was my idea too. On top of that, the ones that weren't a true story that the movies messed up.
Oh yeah,
I just didn't do my best work. I failed the community. I feel like that was a flat line.
Oh, well, that wasn't a What's Up Doc though.
That's true.
Now we're back
in my wheelhouse.
You are our documentary geek of the round table.
And you know what? If it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't have watched this one.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah, I'd have skipped this one. And one thing, I know that when I'm on this show and we play games and like Action Jackson was naming all the brothers, I didn't. But nevertheless, no matter what anybody tells you, I'm a brother for sure. You understand what I'm saying? And that Christopher Reeves at that time, and I grew up at this time, I was in a predominantly black culture. We wasn't talking about him like that.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we was Ric Flair, dog. Ric Flair was our Superman, dog. Ric Flair was our Superman. So just, I knew Superman, especially the dudes who blew on the cars. I remember that one. I don't know which one that was. The people that stood in the street and they blew.
Oh, yeah, Superman 2.
Yeah, so I remember Superman. I watched it. I've watched it again since it's been on Max. I've actually watched the old one since they've been on Max. But I wouldn't have watched the documentary.
Yeah. I think I wouldn't have watched it if it wasn't for doing this show on it. Because I knew I'd be sad. It'd make me sad, which is, I wasn't wrong.
So you pretty much knew all of that before.
Well, I knew, and I'll talk about this as we go along. of course, I knew about the accident, and I remember being sad when I heard about it. You know, when he had the accident, got paralyzed, and I remember vaguely him appearing at the Oscars. I remember him being on Smallville in the wheelchair, like he came in for like a cameo appearance on Smallville, and but I don't remember him passing away all that well, because I think there was a part of me that when someone gets injured like that, there's a man thing that you do where you're like, you kind of take them out of sight, out of your mind, because you don't want the bad feelings of like, oh, that guy used to be larger than life to me in my world, and now he's not, and that makes me have feelings that I don't want to feel. Probably the most ironic thing for Superman. Mm-hmm. That's a real wow. Yeah.
So for me, like early on in this documentary, when they're showing him in the early 90s walking, and I'm like, that's kind of weird to see, because he became paralyzed when I was 6.
Yeah.
So for like until the point he dies, like my cognitive memories are him being
using
in
all
a
big
wheelchair.
words.
Yeah.
And like as a younger person rewatching on TV the old Superman movies, like they were okay, but they weren't like my cup of tea.
Get out.
Yeah, you got to go, bro.
Get out,
bruh. You got. There is no other Superman. That was the most realest thing.
He was Superman.
That's it. There's no doubt about that.
I hear you.
There's no doubt about that.
But like
he's just young, Dave.
He wasn't like a huge focal point for me growing up. Like,
no, I understand.
And Batman was the hip superhero at that time.
So, and you're talking about the one with Jack, right? Because that's when that kind of came out.
Yeah,
the early 90s.
The 90s.
There's a big resurgence. Yeah, there's a resurgence there of Batman. That was a big deal, I will admit.
Yeah, because Batman wasn't a thing in the 80s.
Yeah, no.
It was all about Superman.
No, unless you watch some old reruns of the ones with Bam and Adam West in them.
Because the Tim Burton Batman movie, just like Cody, comes along at the tail end of the 80s.
89, baby.
Yeah. Prince tore that soundtrack up, dog.
Oh, yeah, he did.
Prince tore that soundtrack up.
If you haven't figured it out, we're here to talk about the documentary Superman, the Christopher Reeve Story.
Y'all got me on this one.
And, I'm just going to tell you off the top, I ugly cried.
Y'all got me on this.
Point.
Y'all some dogs. It just wasn't on my radar. Y'all said, no, they did not, dog.
It's all about Christopher Reeve. Obviously, it's his story. He was the Superman for the generation that kind of grew up in the late 70s, 80s, 4 movies. Mm-hmm. And he's just an amazing, even people who knew who he was, maybe you didn't know he was a Juilliard-trained actor, that he was that level of talent. And of course, this follows his accident. He was a really, really active dude. I didn't realize all the stuff he did until this documentary either. He was very active in his outdoorsy life. And he, in fact, so much so that he took part in actual equestrian competitions.
Yeah, I had that in my notes. He just was active.
Yeah. And so in one of these equestrian competitions, like steeplechase, where the horse jumps over
he's
things,
in the middle of them just getting it, dog.
It's like a fluky thing that happens. Like the horse stops short. They had a name for it, and I forgot. I didn't put it in my notes. But basically, it's just the flukiest thing, because it's not like it's uncommon for a rider to get thrown from their horse.
Yeah.
And the third son, the youngest son, mentions it at one point.
Yeah.
He's like 1 inch this way, he dies instantly.
Yeah.
1 inch the other way, it's just an embarrassing fall, and he gets right back up like nothing ever happened.
That's just crazy.
Yeah.
I know. That's just like, it's just heartbreaking. There's so much of this that's heartbreaking.
But it makes me wonder how many times I've almost been paralyzed.
Yeah, right.
Like, golly.
Right? But yeah, so this documentary kind of serves as just like a reflection of his journey from Hollywood icon, pop culture icon, to something quite different after the accident, to like this kind of inspirational figure and an advocate in many ways.
Absolutely.
That we'll get to that part of the documentary as well, because he really becomes an advocate for
disabilities,
people with disabilities. So we've kind of already I have questions written down. What comes to mind when you think of Christopher Reeve? We kind of already answered that question.
Yeah.
We kind of already did our experience. But how did his portrayal of Superman, like, you've already said since being a black man, it doesn't really shape your pop culture world.
The Superman movie was a big deal, but Christopher Reeves was different than Superman to me. For some reason, that was separated. But I will say, if you will, like, I didn't realize how good of an actor he was. Like, I didn't realize how well trained he was. It's just so cool that Hollywood isn't all just full of this place where there's this pretentious person who knows how to do crazy things. They are, I mean, even Robin Williams in his shtick that he does, if you're not careful, somebody could look down upon him like, they don't take no time to do that. But these are some well-trained dudes. The guy from Dumb and Dumber, also Jeff Daniels.
Yeah. Yes.
These dudes are well-trained. That, you talk about humble beginning. The whole thing, I got to go to London, y'all. It's like, wait, what?
Yeah, they're sitting here. You're immediately thrust in this documentary into this world where a class at Juilliard has Jeff Daniels, Robin Williams, Christopher Reeve, William Hurt, and you're just like, whoa.
And
yeah.
We are name dropping like all the names.
Yeah.
And William Hurt being like, if you don't take this, you're going to lose the love for the art of it all. And
okay.
I'm like,
no.
But it ended up being something to it, though.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
No, it was. Yeah. He was right.
Christopher Reeve is a way more talented actor than most people will ever remember him as.
That's right.
And it's because the Superman machine just takes over everything.
Absolutely, yeah. Because
I, as a kid growing up in the 80s, was vaguely aware that he was in other movies. I just didn't watch
them. Yeah, absolutely.
Nobody did.
Yeah.
And this documentary, he kind of explains that he takes parts in more of your like artsy, where he can go way off the beaten path. Well, those movies aren't going to be box office successes. So my view of Christopher Reeve, what I remember, even though I was a kid, was that he was Superman, but not a successful box office draw in that way. He's not like Robin Williams. You don't think of him as like Robin Williams. You think of as mega successful.
Yeah.
And no one ever really thought of Christopher Reeve that way.
Yeah.
At least that was my remembrance of it. But I will say,
to the point that I don't even remember him. I just know Superman. That's right. You're proving your point. I don't remember him. I just remember Superman.
But they showed clips from the old Superman movies, and I've recently rewatched the first and second one. And I had forgotten because I didn't watch it when I was a kid. I didn't watch it to see the quality of the acting. Mm-hmm. And now when you watch it, and this is not like, I'm going to say something, and I don't mean to disparage Henry Cavill, because I liked Henry Cavill in the role of Superman. But there is a completely different level of acting going on with Christopher Reeve and Superman. And it's all kind of summed up in that one scene in Superman 2. I think it's Superman 2, where he's considering telling Lois that he is Superman.
Oh, like the son talked about. Yeah.
Yeah. The son talks about it in the documentary where he takes off the glasses and his hunch goes away, and he's like, his voice changes while she's in the bathroom. He's like, Lois, I have something I need to say to you. And then he freaks out and gets scared and puts the glasses back on. The hunch is back, and he goes, nothing, Lois. I was just, and it's like, he really just changes in front of your eyes.
It's like acting 101. I mean, you're really watching acting 101. Like, he's going from like a one act play here.
Yeah.
Just going from character to character. Like that was dope. I had to tip my hat.
Well, and so when I watched it as a kid, I wasn't looking for those subtle things. But even in the action sequences, the things he's doing with his eyes.
But didn't we feel like they were in love? Like, he was such a good actor that you felt his love for Lois. Like, I remember as a kid, like, I just wanted to see them together. It was like Jim and Pam. Just do it. It was like Bo and Hope. Just do it. Just be together. And so that, I didn't think of that as good acting. He was selling. I was bought into the storyline. And that just goes to, I was watching this going, man, he was a great actor.
I did appreciate him calling out Marlon Brando on, was it Letterman?
Yeah.
I'm like, after The Godfather, Brando doesn't really act.
Right.
But he was just there for the $2 million.
He kind of calls out Gene Hackman too.
Yeah.
In the documentary about like, hey, and they say something about it. It's not him, but someone else in the documentary says like, look, Chris was serious about
Yeah,
acting.
absolutely.
Juilliard-trained. And if he's like, you see this on sports teams. It upsets him if there's people around him who aren't going 100%.
Yeah, Kobe, it ain't happening.
Yeah.
And he showed up to Hackman's trailer. It's like, hey, you want to run some lines? You want to practice? And he's like, let me put my drink down. He didn't know what to do. He was like, oh, this kid's for real.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
So I was reminded of Christopher Reeve was Superman for me. He was the character. I was big into comic books, but obviously there wasn't as much superhero entertainment that was going on. So Christopher Reeve was Superman. This was the live action version we got. And for me, he was Superman. And I think that informs my ignoring of his situation. Like, as a young adult male who I'm not very mature, there's something about seeing your heroes in like that. I felt the same way when Derek Thomas got hurt.
Yes.
Like, I don't want to know about his situation now because
tough.
There's something in the male mind that says I want to keep them in this place where they're not going to be anymore. And so, this was kind of a hard watch from a younger, immature Dave standpoint. Yeah. The mature part of me takes over.
For some reason, I didn't have Christopher Reeves connected to Superman.
Yeah, that's wild.
I just didn't. So when I remember the speech that he
Remains
gave
of the Day fan.
in the wheelchair. And I remember that, and then it didn't connect with me like, that's Superman.
Yeah. Yeah. So the documentary really, it focuses a lot on his early life, his career leading up to Superman. He's an unknown when he gets cast as Superman. And one of the things I found really interesting right off the bat was the struggles he deals with in life that inform maybe some rough relationship patches for him with the first wife.
Yes.
Is that his parents get divorced young. He's got a dad who all he wants to do is please him, but he can't.
Which, holy cow, this dad.
He was something else, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's something.
And like poet philosopher dude that it's like, oh, you're in Superman, like this play, and not you're doing a comic book?
Yeah. He disparages it. He disparages it. First of all,
my heart broke instantly right there.
Not impressed with anyone who refers to themselves as a philosopher that, didn't live 3,000 years ago. Like, what's that about, bro?
The only real philosopher is George Carlin of our day.
Yes.
That's about it.
I agree completely.
But what's interesting too to me, and this has nothing to do with what you guys are talking about, because I agree, the Reeves side of the family was a broken family. His dad, there was something going on there. But Arnold Schwarzenegger as Superman is an SNL skit. That's what I'm going to say. Like, they were like, Arnold Schwarzenegger wanted this. He's like, the guy said he chased after us.
Yeah, the people they say chased after the part. And the dude mentions is like, we can't have an American icon be like, it's truth, justice, in the American way. That's not going to work.
That's an SNL skit right there. Saturday Night Live should have took advantage of that. That's just so good. That's just, but yeah, and Cody's probably more versed than us, because that's his work. But how much of your childhood you bring into your adulthood, and just because they're famous and celebrities doesn't mean that they're exempt of that. And that one of the guys said that fame is like a freight train. Did you hear that quote?
Yeah.
He's like, fame is a freight train. So you throw fame in there plus his childhood upbringing. I don't think that first wife had a chance, or first significant other had a chance.
Yeah.
I appreciated, though, in the documentary that they didn't shy away from it. They're not trying to present Christopher Reeve as some holy subject.
And he didn't want that.
Yeah.
Because remember, the pastors were writing him like, hey, you're Superman. Yeah. And you're a form of Christ. He's like, whoa. I don't know all that.
How dare you?
Yeah. But the documentary doesn't mince anything, doesn't make him look better in those scenarios. You clearly get the understanding that maybe he's afraid of marriage for a while there, and that's why things don't go well with the first mother of his children.
His logic that
wasn't it awesome?
Wasn't that bending over backwards to justify not being married.
Yeah, wasn't that awesome?
I'm like,
and she was agreeing with him.
Yeah,
but he's not a present father.
No,
I mean that was clear. Like, they say things about that, and yet there's real hope there, where you can overcome some of those things with Like, because he clearly changes. It clearly comes about with the woman he marries, the second woman.
Yeah.
And that clearly changes him. And then the accident itself changes it, because he himself in the documentary starts referring to, like, I start looking and dealing with people differently. He says I'm more present with them. He understands. He says something along the lines in the documentary that all of a sudden what was important became clear, which was these moments with being present with people. And I was like, yeah, that's it.
Well, the birthday party for Will in the ICU, that's when I started feeling some kind of way. And then y'all hit me with I'll be with you for the long haul, and you are still you, and we love you. I was like, oh, man, listen. That woman loved him.
Yeah. Well, he credits her with saving his life.
Absolutely.
Because he's considering saying, hey, shut all the machines
Yeah,
down.
and so was his mama.
Yeah, the mom's pushing for it.
Because most of the time, your wife don't have mama love for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, you love your wife, but she don't have mama love. She passed mama.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, dog? Like, she had more than mama love for him.
Yeah, but that line, you're right. You're still you, and I love you.
Yeah, I love you, your being.
Yeah.
Come on, bro.
And I'm like, okay.
Now,
That
but
proves
she's not wrong.
here's the thing, though. Here's what's crazy to me. That's all Clark Kent wanted. That's all Superman wanted, was for her to love Clark Kent. That's what every man wants. You know, I get you with my Superman. I'm helping you move your parents, and I'm trying to impress you. But I want you to love the dude who got the hole in his socks, the hole in his drawers, who doesn't remember all the dates, who forget. Will they ever love Clark Kent? Mama loved Clark Kent, right?
Yeah.
And so I was watching. It's like she was his Lois Lane. That's what Superman wanted. He wanted to be able to take the suit off, and Lois Lane still want him.
Yeah.
And he took the suit off for sure. He couldn't do nothing for himself.
Yeah.
And she still wanted him.
And that's such a different boy for a man. That's a hard road.
Yeah, bro.
So when I was young, I saw my grandfather have a stroke. And my grandfather was like larger than life, military guy, sergeant major.
Yeah.
Just exuded manliness, the kind of manliness that you would think of back in like the 70s and 60s and 70s, was just a man's man. And when he had his stroke, he needed help with everything. And all of a sudden, my British grandmother, who is like the complete opposite of my grandfather, is the caretaker, the one making decisions, you know? And so like, she'd never been in that place before. She's the meek, right?
Yeah.
She was the one to like follow his lead. And so I'd seen something like that before. And to watch what the women do in that scenario, and you see it from Dana Reeve in this, where her life becomes about caretaker for him. And that there's never any point where she complains in this. Like, there's never any point where she has,
That's true.
You don't see any negative emotion from it at all. And she had talent. Like,
And that
she's
poem,
a singer.
that poem was dope.
Yeah.
It started about carrying the towels.
Yeah.
And that was a dope poem.
Yeah.
I tried to find it. I couldn't find it. I think that he even before that accident, he said in an interview that was the love of his life. That was everybody should have a romance like him and his wife, he said. But I also put in my notes that everyone should have at least one friend like Robin Williams.
Oh, yeah. So
we going to talk about Robin Williams
the
now?
thing that drew me to this documentary, because besides him being Superman and knowing that he became paralyzed and a disability advocate, was that him and Robin Williams went to Juilliard together and that they were good friends. And so I'm like, we're going to get a little bit of Robin. I don't know how much Robin. And so that's part of what drove me to wanting to watch this. But then like Christopher Reeve Story, just like, whoa. I wasn't ready for all of it. But, Robin is a tremendous friend. And I'm like, I don't know anyone that would do half of this stuff.
I'm telling you,
Where's
dog.
my Robin Williams?
Yeah, but did you were talking earlier about men and us sometimes struggling with seeing somebody that we love weak, and even Christopher Reeves talked about, because he was such a strong, active person, he played a part as a paralyzed police officer. And he had to train for that part at rehab facilities with people who were in wheelchairs, and he didn't want to mess with them because he said
he was dismissive.
He said the danger of separating ourselves apart from suffering. And he's like, I wanted to separate myself from suffering. And so kind of the podcast, y'all are both, I'm not going to say not to violate your rule, but you guys have that philosopher sense to you. So just speak to that, like just that sense of he was the one who took suffering and brought it to the pop culture and said, look, we gotta look at this differently. We can't just keep acting like suffering's not happening all around us.
Yeah. So like,
because isn't that what entertainment is? Sports, like a break from suffering.
Yeah. So I think we as men, in that, especially in that old fashioned sense, when my grandfather had his stroke, he wouldn't be out around us. He didn't want to be around people. There's a part of us that wants to hide that and shelter our vulnerability.
Christopher Reeves talked about that.
And Christopher Reeves talks about it in the documentary, in these old interviews. And what's so amazing about Christopher Reeve's story is that at some point he makes that decision like, no, we're going to be out front and center. And it has a lot to do with, he talks about how dismissive he was of the people with disabilities when he was that role. And he even says, like, he expresses some shame about it, right? I can't remember the exact thing he says, but he expresses some shame about it. And he said, so when he's in these rehab places, he starts talking to these people, he gets to know them. That's somewhere around the place where he starts saying about how important it is to just be present, how this is everything in life comes down to this idea of being present with people. And so then he becomes like this huge advocate. And even so much, it comes on so strong that he's using all his power as a pop culture icon that at first I remember the tide kind of moved against him because they thought a lot of people accused him of doing it for his own gain. Like, because, of course you wanted to find a cure now. There were a lot of that kind of people, and they mentioned that in the documentary.
I was going to say, there's one part in the documentary my wife interrupted and was like, so cancel culture's been around forever, people.
Oh, yeah.
Because during that commercial where they kind of do like
he gets up
AI
and walks,
him walking.
Yeah.
And
it just didn't have the vehicle to give it the power it does now, which is social media.
And so like there's a group of people that are very angry against him, and his wife and him had the conversation, and they come to an understanding like, oh, they kind of do have a point with some of this, and we need to be more thoughtful of how we express it. But like at the same time, it was his perspective.
I'm sorry. I just disagree. I disagreed with that response. Now, if you want to do something for people that accept it, but he was interested in trying to figure out to do the impossible. And that's why we are where we are. Because somebody wouldn't accept. Wilbur, Orville Wright, them dudes, they would not accept. The Wright brothers or whoever came up, Mr. Chanute, whoever came up with flying, just would not accept that if birds can fly, we can fly. And so I just feel like that was the dumbest. I felt like that was church people. I'm like, man, they act like church. You have it in the church. If somebody has too much faith, it makes everybody feel some kind of way. I'm like, what is wrong with somebody just believing that the impossible can be done? And he just wasn't going to accept it, to the point that he started moving. And who knows what would happen if he had more time. And because of him and his unwillingness to believe in the impossible, look at all the advances they're making now. And I'm telling y'all, as I started doing my research, they are directly connected to this man.
Yeah, and his foundation.
Yes.
Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation.
Yes.
Which is like a real
So
power.
if he would have just accepted it like everybody's saying you should do, and there's a healthy psychological piece to that, and I would argue you can't come up with a solution till you accept what you're in. You have to accept stuff as severed. What do you mean he didn't accept it? He has to scientifically to draw a conclusion. You have to accept this has happened. He just ain't accepting that he has to stay here. Yeah. And I just think that that's the type of thinking we need to have. Some people, not everybody, but we got to have one or two people that's willing to say, I'll be the guinea pig.
And I didn't think that him saying like, oh, we'll be able to cure paralysis or whatever, was him saying that there was something wrong with people that have a disability.
But that's how they took it.
And that's how they took it. And so I definitely get like being conscious of what you're saying because you don't want to offend people, but
that's bogus. But that's a joke. You cannot not offend somebody. You become psychologically unhealthy when your focus becomes, how do I say this without offending you?
Yes.
You become psychologically.
That's pretty much all of us now, though.
Thank you. I'm so glad he did not do that.
Yeah.
I'm so glad he did not do that. Even the one lady came back around and said, and we're now benefiting. Everybody that has done something great like that cannot listen to we don't need the whole culture like that. We don't need the culture we don't need everybody in the community like that. But we got to allow at least one or two people to be like, okay, we're going to let him, let's see what he's doing. Let's see what he's doing.
So the piece, one of the big main things I take away from this documentary is there are 3 heroes presented. Superman, one, because they talk a lot about the mythos of Superman.
Yeah.
And we all know that. Like, we're comic book geeks. We don't need a refresher on that. But then the second one is Christopher Reeve after the accident. That, like, so of course there's going to be a reaction of like, oh, he's getting an audience with the president. Well, you wouldn't be able to do this if you weren't Christopher Reeve. But like, look what he's doing. Yes, he's using his pop culture status for others.
That's it.
To advocate. That's exactly what an advocate is.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. And so I think sometimes humans, we can just be so cynical because we know each other. We know humanity. And sure, is there a part of Christopher Reeve that's doing it because he wants to walk again too? Heck yeah. Yeah, I'm sure.
But him walking in means other people are going to
walk.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Exactly. And like you said, there is tangible evidence that his advocacy in that time when, like, look, nobody really, this is going to sound cruel, but where people with disabilities in our mindset and worldview now is vastly different from the late 80s, early 90s. They were an afterthought.
So in one of the interviews I was watching as I was doing research on that part, they asked one of the doctors about disability research, and they said when Christopher Reeve started raising the money for it, if that was a house, scientifically, because of the money he put in there, where are we at now? He said it's a whole new universe, scientifically.
Wow.
They went from what they were doing when Christopher Reeve got started was just a house. They went from it being a country to a bunch of countries to an earth to a bunch of planets to a universe now. That's the compare. That's what the science is now. Yeah. Just neurologically, unbelievable different world.
It is fascinating to think about why, though. Why we didn't think of people with disabilities. And I wonder if it had anything to do with Vietnam. Ooh. Like when servicemen came back with disabilities and everybody that came back from Vietnam, it was like we didn't want to talk about it.
But don't you feel like I'm back to the what Cody talks about a lot, just that sense of we want to separate ourselves. There's something about like suffering like it's infectious and we're afraid like it's an awkward, there's something about us with someone who's suffering. And I personally feel like as a pastor now, I used to want to be I'm speaking at Passion. I'm speaking at a conference, thousands of people. I thought that was the highest calling, the biggest ministry, the most people in your church. Shamefully, that was my motives when I got started. Like I had a person prophesy that to me. Worldwide ministry. I want to meet as many people. Shamelessly, I thought that's the highest calling in the kingdom. And now I just feel like, from my experience, what God has shown me, the highest calling in the kingdom is somebody inviting you into their suffering and letting you sip with them. I think that's the highest calling, that I would call you in my most vulnerable moment, naked, and say, would you sit with me?
Yeah.
And then you would accommodate that. That's the highest calling to me.
That goes back to the Robin Williams point.
Absolutely.
Him being able to transform the anniversary of the accident.
Yeah, man, into a party.
Yes.
Let's talk about the third hero.
Okay.
The third hero in this documentary is a friend.
Yeah.
Robin Williams. Oh my gosh, I'm going to get choked up even talking about it.
Yeah, it's tough.
This was the hard part for me because I was vaguely aware that they were connected.
See, I didn't know
in kind of the same way that, like, what were the stories of the politician and the actor who were roommates? Do you remember them?
Oh,
I don't remember.
Well, Carrie showed up in this one. I was
John Kerry.
John Kerry.
He got all choked up too.
That was Bill. Was it Bill Clinton? Was he roommates with someone? Like some actor, I don't know.
Maybe.
It was vaguely aware to me as a young person growing up that Christopher Reeve and Robin Williams were connected. Until I watched this documentary, I had no idea how connected they were. They were best friends. They were roommates at Juilliard, and the lengths that Robin Williams goes to for his friend is something that I just think everybody could learn from. And
Absolutely.
It approaches this heroic level because I don't know people like this.
Yeah.
Like people that would go that far for friendship. So much so that, you talked about the party he throws. So he throws a party for him on the every anniversary of the accident, and he makes it celebratory. That he would make it a thing of joy that you're still around. When he's really struggling in the hospital after the accident, days after the accident, and he's in a really down place, Robin Williams shows up dressed as a Russian proctologist and comes in all Robin Williams and Christopher Reeve. He said it was the first time anybody had seen him smile or laugh since the accident.
He figured out who it was too.
Yeah. And Christopher Reeve himself says, when he made me laugh like that, it was then that I realized, there's still something. If I can laugh, I can live. Like there's something worth living for. And that, like, that is a superhero. Yeah. That is to make people want to carry on just by being kind, just by being there for him. And like you said, someone who says compassion, the roots of the word co-passion, the Latin or whatever the base words of it are, literally mean to walk alongside in suffering. Yeah. And that, I don't think there is a higher calling than that. I think you're right.
And the church does a good job with orthodoxy. They do a good job with orthopraxy, but that orthopathos is one that gets skipped. And the right order of compassion just gets skipped so often. And that's one of the things that we see immediately in Jesus' announcement of the kingdom. It's just this compassion for the people who are sick. And he immediately goes and heals Peter's mother-in-law. And these people are, and it's like, I just took from that, like just that call, that demand from the kingdom to just remember that we head towards suffering. We don't run from it. We don't avoid it. We don't try to numb ourselves to it. We don't try to ignore it. We move towards suffering. And the other thing that I think is important that I have in my notes is that picture that dude took of that vulture that was with that baby over there in Sudan. He won a Pulitzer Prize for it. And he was told that he can take pictures, but he couldn't get involved. And if the government heard about him getting involved, they're going to put him in jail, put him in prison. And he's watching this vulture, watching this baby try to make it to an eating center. And he's watching this vulture follow this baby because the vulture knows all the signs of death are taking place in this kid. And he doesn't know what to do. Do I take a picture of the kid or do I help that kid get some food? He chose to take a picture. And he won the Pulitzer Prize, and 6 months later he committed suicide. I'm going somewhere with this. I think the hardest thing to do when you are practicing compassion is to be able to share in someone's suffering without taking in the pollution that comes with that pouring of out. And Robin Williams, who was well acquainted with darkness, would go into these dark. He saw that depression. He knew what he was looking at when he looked at his best friend. So they had this kinsman thing going on. And I know he smelled on him even before the paralyzed situation. He wasn't just depressed because he was paralyzed. It got put on steroids after. That's what happens. I see this all the time with grief. A person have unforgiveness or something that's close to them they can't let go of, and then something bad happens, and they think I got all this unforgiveness because of this. It's like, nah. It's just on steroids now. And Robin, I think, smelled it on him a long time. And I think for me, when I wrote in the documentary, was just kind of a call, like the wife ends up dying of cancer. So I didn't know that.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, quickly, man. You're just like, wow.
At some point in the documentary, because I had completely either not known about that or forgotten. And at some point in the documentary, I become intensely aware that she has not appeared and they keep talking about her like
in past tense,
like she's not there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're kidding.
That's
me.
what I said. I did
You're
the same thing.
kidding me.
I did the same thing, bro.
I remembered that she had died within like a year or two of
Gosh.
Lung cancer. Never
Yes.
smoked a cigarette.
She coughed while she was
Healthy.
singing. I had this terrible cough.
Unbelievable.
I said, oh, man. I just think that the other thing that we got to remember as we're sharing compassion is just to make sure that our hearts are healthy.
Yeah.
I just picked that up just watching. Did you see his face? Did you see Robin Williams' face at that funeral, bro? I wanted to hug him so bad.
yeah.
I wanted to go into the TV and just hug him.
It's from that point in the documentary where I roll into a slow, long-lasting weeping.
Man.
Because Robin Williams comes out on stage and looks nothing like Robin Williams.
Yeah, man.
He's like, his shoulders are slumped, his face is down, and he starts talking about his friend. And you're just like, it's so shocking. You're like, that's not Robin Williams.
Yeah,
Who is that guy? And then when he quotes Shakespeare, because again, Juilliard actors.
Yeah.
And Christopher Reeve, that's what he wanted to be. He wanted to be Shakespeare. That's the stuff he wanted to do. When he says, "May flights of angels sing thee to thy rest," and he cracks up, he breaks up at the end, and then it's like he can't get off stage fast enough. I'm just like, I'm a mess. I'm so sad. But Christopher Reeve has this line about a hero that he originally says talking about Superman, his role, but I think it accurately describes everything we've been talking about. Christopher Reeve after his accident and Robin Williams. He says this: I think a hero is an ordinary individual who finds the strength to persevere and endure in spite of overwhelming obstacles.
I put this down. I was going to ask you.
Oh,
The difference between loneliness and solace. That ends up being the end of the documentary. They asked the question, what's the difference between like solitude and loneliness to you?
so I think there's an overlapping point with the two. But solitude, like, you're kind of okay with it. You're okay with being by yourself. But there's a point that it will become loneliness. And it's not good for anyone to be in solitude too long. Like, there's times you do need to be in solitude.
Because did y'all catch it when he said, I will never be alone? He said he started crying when he got home because he said, I'll never be alone in my house again. But he's lonely because the type of injury he has.
Yes, he can't do.
Nobody can relate to it.
Yeah. And like he can't participate in the games with his kids.
Yeah, I put that in. It's so funny. I said he went from participant to observer. He said that. I went from active participant to observer.
Yeah.
So he had this weird loneliness without the solitude because he was never able to spend any time alone. I was broken, y'all. I said, y'all, I'm never trusting y'all again. I'm never trusting y'all again.
Me who never sheds tears, like, I quietly am having them slowly go down my face, and my wife's talking to me and I'm just shaking my head because I can't talk. And I'm like, oh, this documentary. But one thing I wanted to highlight within it, I loved when they would flash to that Superman that was like a marble-looking figure, that it changed as the story was going on. When he got separated from the first partner and was kind of off by himself, you could see it just like floating around in space, like alone. And at this point in his career, he's not getting the blockbuster roles. He's not making enough money. He has to take some parts that he probably wouldn't take. And then, like, during his injury, kryptonite comes out of the figure.
Yeah. Someone did some really imaginative work with the animation of all that. Yeah.
And it was at that point that I was like, okay, this is the best DC or Marvel thing of 2024. Because DC Studios is the one that helped produce it. And I'm like, this might be the best DC thing since the Dark Knight trilogy, and it might be the best DC thing ever.
So the moment I go full on weeping, I want to talk about this because I think I have a biblical experience here. It's the point It's after he dies. So it's even after the funeral thing where that chokes me up. That kind of tenderizes the area. And then Glenn Close, the actress Glenn Close, says something that just completely unspools me, just unravels me, right? She says this. She says, I truly believe that if Chris didn't pass, that Robin would still be here.
I heard that, yeah.
Oh, I just lost it, you guys.
Yeah.
That's
when I wrote my point.
Yeah.
Like,
and I'm as I'm sitting there weeping, I have this thought. So there's this Bible story where Jesus is on his way to his friend's house who has died. And he knows that he's going to raise him from the dead. It's the Lazarus story.
Yeah, John 11.
And there's this he knows he's going to raise him from the dead. He says he's going to raise him. And then there's this really confusing thing that kind of happens that there's hundreds of theories on, but nobody really knows what's happening because you'd have to be inside Jesus's brain.
Yeah.
Where it says Jesus wept.
Yeah. Good stuff.
And it's the word there means like an ugly cry, like I was doing after Glenn Close said that. Yeah. And so I tried to examine why I was crying. And I think the reason, and my thought I kept having when she said that, and I just kind of lost it. It was late at night. My kids are all in bed because it would have been embarrassing. Yeah. Right. I'm sitting there crying. Yeah. And the thought that keeps going through my head is, this isn't right.
Yeah.
This isn't right. This isn't right. Especially because we'd already passed the part where Dana died too.
Yeah, man.
And just the thought in my head was, this isn't right. And then I thought, that's it. Jesus isn't crying because of the reaction of the people.
Yeah.
He's not crying because he's sad that his friend died. He's crying that death has invaded it all.
That's what Phil Fewens hit me with. We were having a discussion about it, and that's the same thing Phil Fewens told me.
He's crying because there's a thing inside us when we see trouble.
Yeah, we
see this. We know intrinsically this is not the way it was meant to be.
That's what Phil Fewens taught me. I didn't know that till Phil Fewens hit me with that. That's the same conclusion he dropped because I gave him an answer that I was taught, He's like, let me tell you what I'm thinking. I was like, I love that about Jesus. I love the fact that I think there's even something to the fact that we really don't know how to interpret that passage.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's for everybody.
It's the shortest verse in the whole Bible, and one.
It's the shortest verse, and it's for everyone.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the fact that if I'm weeping over a loss of a significant other, and I see that, and it does something to my heart, Jesus, like, that's what it's there for. Mm-hmm. And then if it's the tragedy of tragedies, that's what it's there for. That's good stuff, Dave. Good stuff, bro.
I was going
Y'all
to
got
say,
me on this one.
For that particular moment, that's when I hit for me that this isn't shalom.
Yeah,
like
that's
the world's
exactly
so broken.
Yeah, and that was exactly what when I say this isn't the way it's supposed to be. That's literally the definition of shalom.
Yes,
things as they were meant to be. That's like that. That is what that means.
Nothing missing.
That's the perfect.
Hold on,
word.
I'm writing my sermon right now. Hold on. Hold on a second.
Well, I'll ask Cody like a kind of a concluding question here. Cody, what part of the Christopher Reeve story, either his portrayal of Superman, his journey after the accident, the friendship with Robin Williams, what stands out to you most in this whole story?
Oh, there's so much. Because like early on, it was definitely the dad issues and how it became cyclical in his life. But then there definitely, I think it's his marriage and his later relationship with his kids.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing. That was amazing to me. That was fascinating. The fact that he does almost everything wrong in the first relationship with the two older kids. Not because he's a bad person. Like we try to stay away from good people, bad people. That's hogwash. He's broken. And then it was like that right woman coming along changed everything for him.
Ain't that real talk,
and,
though?
Like,
ain't that real talk, though?
Like after the accident, even like the first partner and him are able to become friends.
Yeah, they're close. The whole family. I mean, they're
like close again.
Oh, the part where after.
But even when they were dating or whatever, she called the ex and was like, "Hey, I want to talk to you about the kids.
Yeah, super mature.
Yeah.
She's obviously way more mature than I've ever been.
I'm like, who is this woman he married?
That was another part that we haven't really talked about that really got to me was the maturity of the two older kids. I have younger half siblings, and we're not as close as I'd like to be, but just because life took us apart. I didn't grow up with my dad, so I wasn't around them a lot. I'd like to be closer to them, but have I put out the effort to do that? Probably not. But what struck me was after when the mom gets sick. So Christopher Reeve has passed. The mom gets cancer. It's the two older kids from the previous relationship that come take care of the young third kid, their half sibling. Yeah. And he says, as he's kind of breaking down and he's describing what it was like losing his father and his mother, he's like,
and his grandmother.
Yeah, and his grandmother. He's super thankful that he had these two older half siblings who like dropped everything and made him their life. And then like he also is describing the feeling of like, it doesn't change the fact that I feel utterly alone. But I was just like, oh my gosh, it was just fascinating. But the family dynamic of all that was super fascinating to me.
Yes.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that part, again, we're back to what we're saying about solitude versus. So when he's like that feeling of alone, and there's a sense of shalom missing in his life.
Yeah.
And I think I put that in my notes just now because you said you're okay with solitude, and so if you're okay with solitude, there must be a sense of shalom. But there comes a point where that solitude is no longer shalom and you need community.
So it's Jesus going off by himself.
Yeah.
But he always comes back.
Yeah, to the people.
Yes. It's not, I'm gone forever. It's, I need a break. I need to
That's
recharge.
good stuff. Y'all, this was a good one. This one had me hook, line, and sinker.
What was your favorite part about all this, DJ? What's the thing that you'll take with you from this story?
Just a good call to be humble. Just a good call for humility. Just the humility of it all. Mm-hmm. There's just so much humility in this documentary.
Yeah.
And, we see these celebrities and we talk about them. This is the pop culture show. And sometimes it's easy to forget they're really human. They really are real people. If you cut them, they're going to bleed. And it's easy to forget that. And to see that community with Whoopi Goldberg, some of these people, he's like, Whoopi, all these people connected to him, like they are their own little community. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And they're connected. And they're real people.
Yeah.
They're real people.
Yeah. Well, we watched Superman, the Christopher Reeve Story. You got something?
Pastors took the time to write Superman to tell him that his role to the community, right, to the world, instead of explaining to their kids that that's a movie and that's a character, and Jesus is real life. Like they're going to put all that on him.
Like, look, for young Dave, Superman is Jesus. He embodies
that character, yeah, absolutely.
The character of Superman,
the comic book, yeah,
is the one
the
that
parallels
I think of,
are unbelievable.
That when I come to the Bible as an adult, I'm like, I know this guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's Superman.
Absolutely. The parallels are unbelievable. I don't know if they meant to do that, but the parallels are unbelievable.
Don't tell me God doesn't speak through creation.
Yeah.
Don't tell me that.
I wouldn't tell you that.
We watched Superman, the Christopher Reeve Story. Have you seen it? If you have, tell us your thoughts on it on the social media posts. Thank you to DJ for coming on and talking about it. And make sure and review, rate, subscribe, do all those things. We'll see you next time.